Hey there guys, it's Liam Landry with the Small Wrestling Alliance, and I'm here to tell you if NXT WarGames and the November 22nd episode of NXT was worth it or not. WarGames was coming out of Houston, Texas, and it started off with Sullivan versus Kassius Ohno, and this was a very solid opener. It kind of had a slower start, but it really got into it when Kassius got in a lot of his offense. Kassius did end up winning. I mean, he ended up losing, sorry. Sullivan ended up winning, but Kassius Ohno still looked really good in that, giving Laws one of his biggest challenge, and Laws definitely came out looking like a monster. So he was very well protected. You could probably say it was the weakest match of the night, but that's really more of how the rest of the card was so good that it didn't look as good in comparison, but it was still a really great match and really entertaining, so it was definitely worth it. Next was the Fatal 4-Way for the vacant NXT Women's Championship. This was featuring Ember Moon, Nikki Cross, Peyton Royce, and the Mae Young Classic winner, Kairi Sane. This was a really stellar match, and surprising because it was actually under 10 minutes, the whole match, but they were able to fit so much in, and they were able to give all the girls something to really shine with. No one was left behind. They had a lot of interesting a lot of great spots, interesting maneuvers and all. So it was really stellar for that. Ember Moon ended up winning, and I think that's a real good decision. So now we get to see the future of the NXT Women's Championship with Ember Moon. I should also say Asuka, was there in attendance and actually handed over the championship to Ember Moon. Though granted, it didn't necessarily seem planned, and because it looked like she almost just hopped into the ring herself and asked William Regal, if she can hand it over. But it was a nice moment, and it's good because Asuka was definitely getting to the point where, she was still having good matches, but what more could she do in NXT? So it was definitely your decision to move her up, and now Ember Moon, which has always been a really big star and would seem to be the person who would be the next champion, and finally becomes the champion, and we can hope for some other great future matches from her. Next was the one of my favorite matches of the night. It's a tie between that and WarGames for different reasons, but it was the Aleister Black versus Velveteen Dream match. This was a really great match. It had really great storytelling in it, and Aleister Black is, of course, phenomenal in the ring. His movements are so great, and just how transferring from move to move, it's so smooth, and it doesn't really seem like he's, I don't know, I guess like he doesn't even seem like he's in weighed down. He almost looks like a video game character from how he can just move so quickly. And Velveteen Dream was really able to keep up with him and really come close to matching him a lot in the ring. And there's, of course, a lot of great storytelling, a lot of great character work from both guys. And you wouldn't necessarily think of that because of from where this feud was started from. The whole idea that this feud started because Aleister Black didn't give enough attention to Velveteen Dream. It seems like such a silly thing, but the character of Velveteen Dream really makes this work. And I think both guys ended up looking so much better for that. Aleister Black didn't end up winning, but Velveteen Dream ended up getting his acknowledgement at the end, so both guys just looked great and the fans really loved it. Now next is the NXT Championship match with Drew McIntyre defending his championship against... then it goes safe to say that the Aleister Black Velveteen Dream match was worth it. But So the championship match, Drew McIntyre is champion, defending his title against Adrian Alamos, who was, of course, accompanied to his ring by what they call his business partner, who ended up being a big part in the match too. This was very good. It was in a difficult position to be in between the really great Aleister Black Velveteen Dream match and between WarGames on the other side of it. So it's such a difficult spot to be in. I would never want to be in that spot, but they did a really excellent job in there. It's definitely up there. It's kind of difficult to rank these matches because of how good it is, but it was pretty good. And there was what you don't really even see a lot anymore is a lot of great manager style interference from Adrian Seamus, Adrian Almas's partner there. She really got in the ring, even hit Drew McIntyre with a Hurricanrana at one point to put Adrian's foot on the bottom rope so that the ref would stop the pinfall. There's not even really that many managers left. And Paul Ellery, he's for Authors of Pain, that's another manager. And sometimes he kind of interferes, but for the most part, you don't really see that anymore. And Paul Heyman definitely doesn't really interfere. He just kind of comes out, talks for Brock. And a lot of times he's just, at ringside for Brock. He doesn't even do anything because, Brock in his matches doesn't really need it. But the whole thing is you don't really get to see as much anymore of like an actual manager interfering with the match, being someone outside. So it was nice to kind of actually see that. So Adrian Almas ends up winning. Sadly enough, Drew McIntyre ends up getting injured from this. Adrian went for the hammerlock DDT off the top rope, and you can see that Drew McIntyre is holding on to the top rope. He gets pulled over and is holding on to it. And I guess there was kind of miscommunication as when Adrian dropped him down to deliver to the DDT, he was still holding on to the rope. And that's probably what ended up injuring him. It was a forearm injury. So hopefully he gets better soon. But until then, let's hope that Adrian Almas can have some other great championship matches down the road. Now finally we got to WarGames, and this was a very great match. One of the, like I said, it's a good tie in for like best match of that night. And one of the big differences is that between the Velveteen Dream Aleister Black match and the WarGames match is because the Velveteen Dream Aleister Black match was a very good, I don't want to say necessarily standard match, but it was a very good in-ring performance and for a normal match type, while WarGames is everything you would expect and more from a stipulation type match. They had great spots, but also great in-ring work. It's almost like two different match types, and that's why it's hard to pick which one was better, because you expect two different things from it. But they were both great examples of their own individual styles, and two of the best matches from that whole weekend, really. So this, of course, evolved the Undisputed Era. It was led by Adam Cole, Bebe, and the Authors of Pain, accompanied by Roderick Strong, and the Sanity, led by Eric Young. This is a really great match. If you've never seen WarGames, and I haven't seen WarGames before, this is definitely a must check out. Even on that record, even this is the point that if you've never seen a WarGames match, you should really go see it. But it's even a really great WarGames match at that. I can't necessarily compare it to other WarGames. Like I said, I haven't seen them before, but but it was super entertaining, super fun, and it's super interesting too. Like I said, tons of great spots, but it never really got lost. Like, you don't think it's just a spot fest or anything. And it ended with the Undisputed Era winning, and so it was definitely worth it. And as a whole, every single match on this card was worth it. So I guess that says that WarGames is worth it. Okay, now we get into the second part of the video, which is talking about the November 22nd episode of NXT, which is the NXT right after WarGames. Now, one thing to be said is that when NXT holds their pay-per-views and all, they film that next Wednesday's NXT before the pay-per-view goes on. So what happens from that is that people who are on the pay-per-view itself don't end up showing for that NXT. A lot because of spoiler reasons, of course. They don't want to give away what happens in the later pay-per-view. And a lot because, you wouldn't want people to have to work 2 pretty long matches in a single night for obvious health reasons. And that's normally a pretty big drain on that next episode of NXT, but especially this time because WarGames not only had 3 singles matches, which is 6 people out already, then you have another 4 for the women's title match. Yep, already up to 10. Then you had the WarGames, which had 3 teams of 3. That's 19 people that were in the NXT WarGames pay-per-view that aren't going to show up to the next episode of NXT. So it makes it very limited, and there's only 2 matches on the whole night, and nearly everything else, is just a replay of what happened at WarGames. And so it definitely makes it a lot less interesting, a lot less to turn into. But the good thing is the matches are actually very solid. It first starts off with a match between Ruby Riott and Sonya Deville. And I should also say, it's very awkward how since they film it beforehand, they have to add extra commentary in to try to make it, make sense, as to, try to keep it in the timeline. So they have to add in commentary and stuff, and talking about the, NXT Women's Invasion angle into Raw and SmackDown. And that always makes it kind of awkward because when you see those invasions, you kind of think they're all on one group maybe, but now 2 of those members are fighting, so maybe they're not in the group. It's confusing to that regards. And I should also add that it's very interesting that they try to pretend that the Wednesday after WarGames, but they have the 2 rings set up from WarGames still out because WarGames, of course, uses 2 rings, so they had to keep the whole night because it'd be too difficult to tear down 1 ring and put up 2 new ones right in the middle of a pay-per-view. So it's like, no, this is this is the Wednesday after. It's not WarGames. We just like having 2 rings. That's just our new thing. So it's not very believable that it's actually a different night. But they still try to pretend that it is. That's what they do. So like I was saying, the match started off. The night started off with the match between Ruby Riott and Sonya Deville, and this was a really, really good match. Both these matches were really good, and but yeah, it had a lot of great back and forth, good match work, technical work. There was a lot of great back and forth until Sonya Deville got the edge on Ruby Riott, and by taking her legs out from under her with a real nice, basically sliding kick, injuring Ruby Riott's lower leg and knee area. Apparently, that's what they were kind of saying, lower leg, knee area. And then it ended up becoming really great working the limbs, and because Sonya Deville was able to really show off her submission holds, and that was real good. And what was really great is that Ruby Riott does a great job selling it, selling the leg injury, but still keeping her momentum in the ring. Like most of the times when you see people, they're supposed to have a leg injury, they have the leg injury, sell a bit, but then they're like, okay, I need to, run or springboard or do stuff like that, so the leg injury just kind of goes away and then maybe comes back a little later. But Ruby Riott really was able to sell the leg injury while still doing all the quick and springboard stuff that she normally does. And that's just really cool to see because, like I said, you don't normally see that. So good on her for doing that. Ruby Riott did end up winning because Sonya Deville ended up getting distracted arguing with the ref, allowing Ruby to hit her Pele kick finisher maneuver and getting the pin. So it was a very great match, great opener. Then you get into the slowdown part of the night, and that's all the replays from WarGames and some backstage segments, but it's mostly everything you saw, and I don't see any reason anyone would be like, let me go watch NXT, but not WarGames. I just want to watch NXT after WarGames. I would say it'd be crazy to think anyone would skip over WarGames. If you're an NXT fan, there's no reason for that really. So it seems kind of crazy, but maybe they just don't have enough people. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem with NXT. They don't have enough people in there to be able to fill that spot, which is kind of a problem. But hopefully we only get to see that after pay-per-views, so it shouldn't affect the normal week-to-week episodes of NXT. So, another thing that was a drag, commercials. And I gotta say, it's one thing for them to put commercials in the show between matches and stuff like that, but it's a completely another one for them to put commercials in the match itself. So you have this great match, like the Ruby Riott Sonya Deville match, it's going great, then it stops its flow just to show you commercial. On TV, that's one thing, but on the network, you of course get to pick when you can air your commercials or not. So I don't know why they had to put it in the middle of the matches. That's gonna be that's gonna be something I'm gonna touch on future NXTs as well, because they just always do that, and I just think it's crazy. Just when the match is over, just go to commercial then. Fine, whatever, but just don't do it in the match itself. So there was that. The only other thing that wasn't replays, and that was in the segment between the first match and the main event, was a parking lot segment. Normally it's backstage, but it's actually a parking lot segment featuring the Street Profits and a team of Riddick Moss and Tino Savatelli. And this is real nice segment here. But what really makes it great, because for the most part it would have probably been a who cares segment, but what really made it great was that they were out in the parking lot, so they had a whole bunch of fans around, and the fans are hilariously just getting into the promo, and it was, because beyond that it was just a normal heel face, heels were rich guys, you're poor, promo. So, but the fans really make that interesting. But and that led to them saying that next week they'll have a tag team match between them. Couldn't have that tonight. Well, so then they also talked about how next week as well there's going to be a number one contenders match for the NXT Women's Championship between Kairi Sane and Peyton Royce. So So once again, next week at least should be filled with some good matches. Then after the parking lot segment, some more replays from NXT WarGames, and then you get to your final match was with Pete Dunne defending his UK title against Johnny Gargano, which is interesting because Johnny Gargano is an American, so I didn't know that they were actually going to let an American even compete for the title, So that's interesting. It kind of ends up giving away the ending of the match, because they're not going to take it off someone from the UK this soon and give it to an American. But it's not always about, the ending, it's about how you get there, and this was a really, really great match. Both these guys did really good. Just like the first match, they had really great back and forth, great technical wrestling, mat wrestling, some cool storytelling there, and near the end of the match, and it was just really good. Both these guys are really great, and it's going to be difficult to see them in. If you put them two in matches, it would be really difficult to see them have a bad match, So it was definitely worth it. Oh, and one thing that's shown from that match that as to why NXT is better than Raw or SmackDown is that when Johnny Gargano comes out to the ring, he does a salute to the crowd, and he goes to someone in the crowd doing a salute back, and guess who it was? It was Jesus Christ. Yes, Jesus Christ is an NXT fan, which is definitive proof that it must be better than Raw or SmackDown. But in all seriousness, there was a guy dressed up as Jesus Christ in the crowd. That's and NXT crowds are just so great because of stuff like that, crazy stuff like that. But yeah, so as for that NXT November 22nd episode of NXT, those two matches are definitely worth it, but everything else, besides maybe the, parking lot segment with the Street Profits, everything else is probably just skippable. So go in there, watch the Ruby Riott Sonya Deville match, then fast forward, catch the parking lot segment, then skip a little forward to the final Pete Dunne Johnny Gargano match, because that's the only parts that worth it. Everything else is pretty skippable. But until next time, see you later.